And this will all make sense in the end.
This is not an easy job. I have to take everything and play it as it lays. Sometimes people need a little help. Sometimes people need to be forgiven. And that is a very tricky thing on my part, making that call. But you can forgive someone? Well, that's the tough part. What can we forgive?
Hello, I'm Thomas Carruthers.
David Whiting.
And today is our third Paul Thomas Anderson episode.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. And this is Magnolia, which currently resides, let me have a look on my rankings. This currently resides at number 13 on the
13?
Thomas.
Well, didn't quite manage to break the top 10.
No, it didn't. And I don't know if that's too high.
Really? Gonna bump, what beats it out for the 12th and 11th place?
I think we're now going to watch a live movie.
A live movie.
And I think I'm going to bump Rushmore, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, Misery and Goodfellas up and put Magnolia now currently at 18.
Wow. Wow.
That was a live movie.
So we watched Magnolia and it decreased in your stead. Or decreased.
I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it's because I'm watching. You know what it is? I think it's when you're watching it with somebody, there is the penchant, there is the motive, there is the feeling. Let's laugh at this.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
No, I'm interested in it. Like there is this feeling of like, yeah, let's laugh at it. Whereas if you're on your own or you're in the movie theater, and I've only ever been on my own.
Right.
Well, that's a bleak thing to say, but the
that's the saddest email I've ever received.
yeah. And I think when you're on your own, you just sort of get sucked in, and all the cynicism. I mean, obviously, this is not the relationship many people have with this film, but all of the cynicism disappears, and you just go, yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting one. Whenever somebody asks me, "What is it about?" So, it's a tough movie to sort of sum up. But I think the reason it's probably so high on your list, the reason I think that a lot of people hold it in such high regard is it's a massively crafted bit of cinema.
Yeah,
it shows off what movies can do in a lot of ways, and it does it really, really well. And it's a very complicated thing to do, and I think he nails it.
I don't know if this is a question that you'll be able to answer without us talking about what we're not allowed to talk about. But does it actually work? Or is this just the big mess that people sometimes make it out to be?
Watching it today, I felt that it worked. The thing we're not allowed to talk about was shocking and jarring, but that was the whole point. I felt like the whole idea was that these insane, incredibly wacky, seemingly impossible, unbelievable things do happen. Now here's a story about all of these people and how all of their lives co-aligned at this really weird, freaky moment in history, and it's going to seem impossible and like it couldn't happen, but these things do, sort of thing. That was the whole premise of the movie, I felt.
Yeah.
So,
it had to be something. It had to be something out of this world, rather than just they all happen to
just be they all run into each other on the street, or they all happen to meet each other at the same time. It had to be some sort of massive event totally outside the scope of like normal everyday to day life that happened to affect all of them at the same time in some way, I guess. Like,
it's very, very, very much in the line of a Robert Altman movie, which it was somebody who Anderson idolized, who most filmmakers idolize, as a matter of fact. But I think the key line to draw is Shortcuts, which is another huge 3-hour film set in LA. All these different stories. In that case, it's not necessarily an original work. They're all based off Raymond Carver short stories. But the thing that draws all them together is just this huge earthquake that happens in LA. And there's a big difference between an earthquake that happens all the time and something genuinely out of this world. And it just turns a lot of people off. I genuinely do not recommend this movie to many people, because I just know full well that 70% of people will just go, what the fuck? Why?
it's a movie that asks a lot of its viewer, I guess.
Yes, most certainly.
You're going to throw on to casually watch and turn your brain off, I guess, for a couple hours.
It's emotionally taxing. It's mentally and physically taxing with its runtime, because this isn't like, you know, a David Lean epic where you can set aside a Sunday and it's like really it's long, but it's all these sweeping vistas and it's a romance and it's beautiful and it's the grand Russian, you know, this palace. This is just dirty San Fernando Valley, depressed addicts and fucked up people.
It's asking a lot of very important questions about life. I mean, it's really sticking the viewer with some really thorny questions that I think people don't really like to think about very often, because you know, it's asking, you know, all kinds of questions about how we go through the world and what it all means, and whether it's better to be honest or to tell white lies, you know, what things we regret in death, like all kinds of things, you know. It's
also for rewatchability, it's a dirty trick, because how many times I've seen this movie so many times. I know that Jimmy Gator is most definitely a pedophile. Do I feel for him for the first 2.5 hours of this movie every single time I watch it? Not because I forget, and not because his cancer and his illness not justifies it, but relieves him of the horrible things he's committed, because it's an excellently acted, written and directed. It's this incredible trick that it pulls every time, and I don't know how it does it. Maybe it's because it's not necessarily direct. I mean, it's pretty direct, but
I mean, I'd say that seems to be Paul Thomas Anderson's skill, is making you feel for characters that otherwise, at first glance, if he just told you who he was, you might not feel that sympathetic towards him. Similar with like Sydney, or you know, Hard Eight.
Yeah.
If you're told flat out at the beginning of the movie who Sydney is and what he's done and why he's doing these things for John C. Reilly, he's not a sympathetic character. You know, he's a guilt-ridden mafioso who murdered a man and is trying to make up for it by taking care of his son. You know, I think his skill seems to be in making you feel for otherwise unsympathetic characters.
Again,
really
a literal one-to-one example is the Colonel, the pedophile who, for the first hour and a half of the movie, is a hilarious character.
My heart twinged for him just a little bit in that final scene, seeing him beaten and sobbing alone in a prison with no friends. Even I.
Shut up, Colonel. I love that he calls him the Colonel. How the hell did this come out in prison that his nickname's the Colonel? Anyway, that's Boogie Nights. He just goes back to reading. It's just
favorite 10-minute stretches of Magnolia.
Yeah, let's go a bit more specific. So the coincidence opening. Again, it's telling us from the off that there's going to be this huge thing that links them together.
Yes.
But it's not really a coincidence. I know we're not talking about the ending yet, but it's not really this huge coincidence where, I don't know, it's this huge, a huge car accident where they all just so happen to crash at the same time. That's a coincidence. The fact that frogs rained down and they were all in LA on that day isn't a coincidence.
Yeah, but I would say the coincidence is that it's perfect timing for all of their stories, right?
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Every
Yeah.
single one of them has this biblical event that occurs at some crucial moment for every single one of them. You know, Frank gets home to his dying father for the first time that he's seen him in decades, we assume, and is there for the last gasps of his father, who wakes up just as it starts raining the F word from the sky. You know, it's like it's couldn't be more perfect, right? It's sort of like it's what a weird fucking moment to have that happen, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about how it happens to all of them and that ties all their stories together, but it does happen at a massively crucial moment.
So let's talk about the coincidences themselves. Greenberry Hill. And you go, oh, this is quite interesting. This is interesting. And then like Pat Healy, who's the actor who plays the person getting stabbed, he then reappears as the pharmacist later. Just one of those little mirroring things. I don't know. Again, what's the purpose? Who knows? But it's this. It adds a mystery to it. It feels almost Kubrickian, but not as smart.
I think sometimes it's worth putting. I don't necessarily feel that every mystery in a movie needs to have an answer necessarily.
Of course not. No.
I think sometimes like directors put stuff into their movies just so that there's something for you to kind of mull over when you go back and rewatch Magnolia for the 5th time and you realize, oh, that's the same actor. Oh, I wonder. It's just to give you something to chew on, isn't it?
I think the biggest one is obviously all the 8-2s, which is something that you'll notice, David, on a rewatch. Of course, Exodus 8-2, you will follow my rulings, blah, 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 or else you will be smited with frogs. There are 8-2s all over the film. 82% chance of rain. You need a 2. That's an 8. The 82 on the plane. The weirdest one for me is when Sydney's about to jump off the building, and the hoses are wrapped up like an 8 and a 2, and it looks stupid.
Yeah, I noticed. I always wondered. I wasn't sure if that was intentional or not when I was looking at that.
82. That one always makes me laugh. But
what the significance of that is, yeah.
It's Exodus 8-2. That's the frog verse in the Bible.
Yeah, but I guess why is that?
Oh.
Why is that significant to each of their stories? You will do as I instructed, or else you shall be smited with frogs, or something along that line.
I think it's. Let me get the. Let's
look it up. Be good biblical scholars here.
Welcome to Bible Corner. I've got it here. No.
But if you refuse to let them go, let's see. If you refuse to let them go, I will send a plague of frogs on your whole country.
Okay, so it's nothing about their actual stories at all.
Well, I suppose you could argue possibly that each of them needs to let something go.
Yes, but you're taking it a bit far now. I love this movie. I love that. I find it very weird that you're in the defending position. I enjoy this a lot.
I mean, the movie was literally being. I think I said it several times. Like, oh, you've got something on your nose there, Paul. Because the whole line from Philip Seymour Hoffman. This is the part of the movie.
Yeah.
Where, so there were several sort of like meta breaking moments that were really on the nose. And I mean, the rain of frogs started to happen as Frank literally was refusing to let go of his emotions, his feelings, his tears, his father. It happened while, who's the boy genius that was cheated out of his
Quiz Kid Donnie Smith.
Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, Kid Donnie Smith, can't let go of his need to be loved, and that's just they all need to let go of something. I guess.
No, I know.
Very
very on the nose. Yeah, the coincidences, but again, it has to be. There's no that's super realistic. Super realistic frog ending doesn't work.
The whole premise of the movie is this is going to sound ridiculous, but it could happen, sort of thing.
The coincidences, yeah. So then the Sidney Barringer. What was your favorite? What was your favorite coincidence, David?
Oh God. Between in the opening stretch,
in the opening stretch.
I thought you meant the whole
the
movie.
whole film. No. That's
No.
that would be very cruel of me to throw on you at this just random moment.
No. I do love the story with Patton Oswalt getting dropped out of the plane.
Yeah, Delma Darien.
It happened.
The pharmacy man's comments. What the fuck? I mean, I guess
that was all I could think. Yeah, I
guess
Julianne Moore was entirely justified.
I think he's trying to figure out, like, is this a drug addict? Are these real receipts?
Yeah.
Is this woman going to go home, die, and then I have to read about it in the morning, and I have to have that guilt for the rest of my life? But also,
he's asking it in the weirdest possible way.
And also, his final line before she snaps is, "You must have some really serious things wrong with you to use all this stuff." Are you for real?
Shut up, pharmacy bitch.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about this. What the fuck is What Do Kids Know? Let's talk about some of the rounds. The picnic game, where you have to know perfect pitch.
That was insane.
Well, I know this one because I have perfect pitch. That's ADE, which means lemonade. Just so many different structures. The letter game, which kind of makes sense to me. The letter game makes sense. The opera question. You have to know full opera and be able to sing it and blah, blah, blah. They have a whole musical trio in the corner. The way it feels to me is that it's an entirely music-based game, but it's clearly not.
Yeah. I mean, he did ask the opera equivalent of basically saying, okay, name the Shakespeare play, to be or not to be. That is the question. He basically said, I think, probably one of the most famous lines of opera there is, but the kid fucking knew it in French. Yeah.
Again, on the nose, quite, but it's fine. Scene of the movie, but this is that scene, that sort of dialogue. Thank God it's delivered by Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, he delivers it perfectly, I think. There's a sort of impishness to him where I think he can get away with stuff like that.
The segment of the seminar, how to fake like you are nice and caring, bit on the nose for me. That's a bit much.
Oh, great!
I know that there is a distinct world where that is not too far from the truth, but it's a bit much for me. Sorry.
How to fake like you're a nice and caring person.
It is just crippling loneliness devouring 10 people over the course of a day.
And they all reach out, and not necessarily in the best ways or to the best people. And I guess that's kind of the whole thing, is that it's not going to be the best people or the best possible scenario, but you're going to reach out anyways because you just need that connection somehow. So.
Does the ending suck?
No, that was fine. What were we going to do to end? At some point it had to end.
I don't know. I've never had this feeling before. Apart from this time, I was like, would a better ending have just been John C. Reilly in his car when he's done it, does his talking to himself again. He drives off. I think it's because the music starts there.
And you expect that's the end.
And I'm like, down, 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 down. And I'm like, cut to black maybe. Because I do think the smile at the camera does irk me a little bit.
It's the directly into camera thing, I guess, because there's been so much like meta, on the nose, self-aware stuff kind of sprinkled throughout. It's like you really had to do one more.
Well, let's talk about this now. The first clip I showed you once we finished, which is Paul Thomas Anderson with his then girlfriend Fiona Apple. Just Fiona Apple is doing this like dance, like she's a dancing monkey, and he's talking to her as if she's Magnolia. And it's this incredible thing where he's clearly he's done a final cut or something like that. And he's acknowledging every single thing that's wrong with it. He is not blind to anything. He's a very knowing person. And he goes, you're not Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights made money. Boogie Nights made money. People liked Sydney. And he's doing all this thing. You're just too. There's too many blowouts, too much music, and all this thing. It's too long. Nobody cares about you and your fucking frogs. you know. And another thing he says, you're working through all your shit on everybody's dime, because this was a very personal film for him, specifically with Earl dying, and it's this incredible portrait of a director just acknowledging every single fault that he knows people are gonna. I mean, and this is what comes to mind of nobody cares. What was that ending? She's smiling. Nobody cares if she's smiling. And I just think it's just this incredible piece of footage.
But I guess I think I liked the ending, and it was a little on the nose, like we said, but I want to say it's the first time we see Claudia smile for the entire movie. If I'm looking back and thinking about it.
Yes, genuinely. There's a lot of nervous coke smiling.
Yeah, it's the first genuine, sober, clear moment we see on Claudia's face, and we're really given the time to see it register.
Yeah.
That, like, this is a new chapter for her, possibly, right? And I don't know. I think that was a good way to end it. I think, you know, and now life goes on, sort of
She
thing.
just needs to smile, not looking at the camera. She needs to smile, cut to black. Don't know why she's looking at the camera. Anyway, other notes. He wanted to shoot the game show first so that it could be in the background of all the scenes. However, Tom Cruise scheduling meant that they had to shoot the Tom Cruise stuff first, blah, blah, blah. I enjoy that the top person at the studio, at the Seduce office is a woman named Janet, who constantly undermines all the men. Good boy, I'm moving down the elevator, Janet. Good boy, good boy.
But I thought it was great. That's
a wonderful choice.
It highlights just how empty these guys' philosophy is. It's bullshit. Everything Jax is spreading is bullshit. Because as soon as the public eye is off of them, they're all the whipping boy of this woman Janet, keeping their fucking ship running.
Tagline rundown: things fall down, people look up, and when it rains, it pours.
That's all over the place.
What the fuck is that? That seems like 4 different taglines. Why not when it rains, it pours?
Man, that would have been all you needed.
Why not this will all make sense in the end?
Wait, was that the only tagline they went?
That is the only tagline I have here.
Well, there's your one thing where maybe the director had a little too much control there.
Yeah, that would
have been a good. There's the change.
Yeah, maybe he was saying it to somebody and they were 4 different ones, and he was like, I don't know, something like things fall down, something like people look up, something when it rains it pours. We're lucky that we didn't get the like in there. When did Linda? Tom's big questions. When did Linda become? When did Linda and Earl get together? How old was she? I know I could have figured it out, but I couldn't be bothered.
Well, how old was she? I guess she would have been.
She's in her 30s.
She's in her 30s in this. I'm guessing early 30s. So I'd say probably early 20s. Maybe been together for a decade or so.
Yeah.
Enough time for Frank to be aware of her existence and everything.
Yeah. And for her to be aware of Frank. This is something I've noted. We understand Stanley's pain of wanting to go to the toilet because the film is so long that we inherently need a wee. I literally had this problem today, and I had the problem when I went to go see it at the cinema for the Philadelphia Film Festival. Quite literally, I needed a wee, and I was like, he's not done this on purpose, but it's ingenious.
But it almost could be.
Has Donnie always wanted to rob the store? Because obviously he has his own copies of all the keys that he has slowly and methodically copied throughout the years.
It seems so intentional, like so well thought out already, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to tell because, he does have a copy of every single key.
And this is really dark. Is Jimmy lying and just can't admit to himself what he's done? Or is his cancer so bad, and is he so old, and is he drinking so much that he literally doesn't remember anymore?
Doesn't matter either way.
It doesn't matter either way. But that's always been a thing in my head of, wait, what if he doesn't actually know? And this is a thing where he's like, I don't know. I and that's why he kills himself, because he's like, was I ever that such an evil person? I cannot live with.
I don't know. I would go. I guess I'm gonna go with, when I was watching it, my feeling was he just can't admit to it.
Yeah.
Essentially, he can't bring himself to say, I molested my daughter, basically. So I guess that's what I went with. And yeah, and then he goes to kill himself because what else is left to do? He's dead in 2 months and he's got no one.
Yeah. What is the conversation? I mean, I know what the conversation is. Frank is coming to Linda to tell him that Earl's died. Is that the only conversation they have? They see each other at the funeral. Like, do they have a friendship? What is their relationship moving forward? Is there one at all?
It's hard to tell because you don't necessarily get the sense that Frank is going to change after this.
No, he's got a huge business.
He's got a massive business. He makes way too much money off. I don't really get the sense that Frank is going to suddenly go out and start repairing his relationships and dealing with his trauma and trying to become a more healthy, well-rounded person. I don't know. I wasn't even entirely sure why he was in the hospital in the first place. Like, what is he? Yeah, he's going there to tell her that he's died, but why does he care that she knows? I guess. One of those. It's a good one. It's one of those ones where it's a question that doesn't get answered, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and that's it all really. The whole thing builds up to this thing that we just have to accept because crazy things happen.
Crazy things happen, and all you can do is just keep living.
I think that's about it with Magnolia. David, any final thoughts on Magnolia?
Just keep living.
Should we do rankings as we go, or should we do a final ranking?
Yeah, let's save it for the end. That way I know exactly what I
was getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Well, that's that one, isn't it? No, thank you very much, David. Magnolia. I sucked on the match guns. Dabba 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 da da ba 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 ba.